This is ContraZoom.
where we go back and forth about film.
I'm Dakota Arsenault.
And I'm Jeff Bulmer.
The Hot Docs Film Festival ran from April 23rd to May 3rd and showcased the best in documentary filmmaking. Jeff had the chance to interview Tommy Avallone, the director of MySpace. The logline of the film is that, what is the legacy of MySpace? Pulling at the heartstrings of millennials and curious newcomers alike, this nostalgic portrait traces how this pioneering social networking platform shaped the digital world we now inhabit, from online fame to social media overload. But yeah, basically, as you know, that tagline is suggesting, this is a documentary about MySpace. The one of the pioneering social media sites, probably in my opinion, the first real like cultural touchstone in terms of social media. Obviously, when Facebook came out, that took over, but MySpace was the thing for a while. And so this is a very exciting documentary about the history, the creators, the influence, all that sort of stuff. And you had a chance to talk to the director about this film.
Yeah, it was. This was fun. This is when I spent a while setting up. The timing was hard to get exactly right, but I'm really happy that it happened when it did. And sometimes sometimes I'll watch a movie, not usually for an interview, but sometimes I'll watch a movie and I'll finish it and go, I'm not sure what I have to say about this. And I have like 2 pages of notes from watching the MySpace documentary just the first time. So this was really great because as I was watching it, I was like, I need to pick this guy's brain, and I got the opportunity to do that. It was really exciting, and he was a great interview subject.
Yes, yeah. Tommy is definitely a very exciting person. He loves talking about MySpace in this film, as you're going to see in a little bit. So he gave a fantastic interview. It was really exciting to kind of hear him talk about the genesis of where this idea came from, where he kind of talked about it, kind of not to spoil too much here, but basically this idea of like, but where did MySpace come from? And like, just sort of like posing the question like that, you're like, huh, I don't actually know what's the story there. I'm sure there's a story there, and sure enough, Tommy uncovered what the story is there, and it kind of plays out in the film. We actually talked about the film on our Hot Docs Wrap Up podcast that came out on a previous episode. That was a movie that I brought to the table to talk about. I was a big fan of it. And I feel like it was, in the movie, in the interview, he talks about how he reached out to Kevin Smith, the filmmaker, and it was like, "Hey, do you have any
Mm-hmm.
MySpace stories?" And that was kind of my uh, interaction with the film when I was writing my review about it. I was like, you know what? I have some MySpace stories about like what I find exciting about what I was doing way back in the day. So I'm glad you got all that great stuff. I know you said that in our Hot Docs podcast, you weren't really a MySpace user. What was it like to kind of go back and sort of remember how this social media thing kind of came to be when it wasn't really something that you were a part of at the time?
Well, I think that the fact that I'm not a MySpace user, but the fact that I was like this close to being a user, just generationally,
Yeah.
not like I almost, well, one of my World of Warcraft friends did in fact suggest at one point that I get a MySpace, but I was young and it was intimidating at the time. And then Facebook came out like 2 years later. But the fact that I just barely missed that cutoff, I think I hope makes me a good interviewer for this because when I was watching the movie, what I was immediately seeing was not just what MySpace was, but what everything after it became. So the thing that the first thing that I found so fascinating in that movie is there's a point that is probably super boring for people that were on MySpace, or maybe not. I don't know, but where he's talking to two of the creators of MySpace, and they talk for a few minutes about the advertising model, and like when I watched that, I was like, oh, this is super important because basically what they're saying or what they're claiming is that before MySpace, uh, the basic business model of social media didn't make sense in the internet. And that to me was fascinating because you go to any website, any of the 6 websites that we have right now, they're all based on advertising. So I was like, oh my God, it's really crazy, everything that came from the influence of MySpace isn't just the obvious things. And I think that, that's what I loved so much about this movie, is that um, even when he's not always explicit about it, he's very cognizant of what to show to get that point across. Another thing that I really liked in this interview that that you'll hear if you're listening for it, he's very, probably obviously, Tommy Avallone, very knowledgeable about documentaries and about other documentaries in this space. There were pieces of this documentary where, like, I was curious why he didn't go further, because other people already have. He's not gonna. He doesn't need to cross over. He doesn't need to tell the story of Napster. There is already a Napster documentary. When he's bringing in Kevin Smith, it's important. Like, that's a good interview, but Kevin Smith also has, like, he's that's there's an entire, maybe that's not the best example, but he's bringing in Kevin Smith to talk about things that Kevin Smith hasn't had a chance to talk about before, but, like, Kevin Smith has had plenty of chances to talk about other things which aren't going to come up in this movie.
Hmm.
He's This movie is very, there's a lot to talk about in MySpace, and I think that I think that Tommy Avallone hits a really good balance of knowing exactly how much to delve into just about every part of it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great perspective to have, and I think I don't think Tommy is really revealing things in this interview that you don't get
No.
from the movie, but I think he does a really good job of contextualizing some of the choices that he made that make this
Mhm.
such an interesting interview.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah.
I did, like I said, I had 2 pages of questions. I didn't get through all of them, but I got through a surprising number.
Hmm.
So, hopefully that's usually a good thing, because it means that we were able to go pretty deep into the movie. So, yeah.
Very true. So without further ado, here is Jeff's interview with Tommy Avallone.
Hello, I am Jeff Bulmer for ContraZoom Pod, and I am here today with Tommy Avallone, the director of the new documentary MySpace, which just recently premiered at Hot Docs Film Festival. Uh, Tommy, first off, congratulations on your film,
Thank
and
you.
how you doing?
Good, good. I forgot you're probably the only one that can see my my cardboard cutout of Tom back here. So I'm not sure
Oh,
if you're
there he
doing a
is.
video or what. But that's it's cardboard Tom from MySpace.
In the movie, if I remember right, because it didn't hit me until I was almost done with the movie. You weren't actually able to interview Tom for the movie, were you?
No, 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 no. But I got to talk to him on emails a bunch. We had like
Mhm.
sort of a chat there, but it was one of those things where he's like a sort of a shy guy, and everything he sort of did for MySpace, he feels should speak for itself. So um, yeah, he didn't want to do it, but it's fine because we had Krista Wolf and Aber and Colin and all these other people who were the co-creators of MySpace to sort of do all the chatting.
And you did have, like, a lot of cardboard cutouts of Tom. What happened to all of them? Obviously, you have the one right behind you.
Yeah, well, so that's the one I have, and I have two in my basement that are the actual like feet and like the whole full body,
Uh
because
huh.
that's not full body. And then I have one more. So three are in my. I have them all.
Okay. Actually, I mean, I have a list of questions I'm eventually going to get to, but I am just fascinated by Tom right now.
Yeah.
How did you get that full body shot? Because the actual picture is not a full body picture.
I'm so happy you asked this. So it's so funny. So like, okay, so in the movie, we play around with some of the story of Tom, who's this
Hmm.
mythical creature, which is sort of like what I've done before with the Bill Murray stories. So it felt very similar in that sort of vein. But yeah, I mean, the only thing you of Tom is sort of like this. It's not even a full hand. It's like a half hand,
Hmm.
and most people would want to do AI, to like do the rest of the body, which I am not really an AI guy. My
Right.
friend Charlie actually even made the AI documentary. But so we took a picture of my friend Derek, who's a producing partner of mine, is shot a lot of the stuff that we've did. He wasn't the DP for MySpace, but he was a camera guy on MySpace. But we
Hmm.
took a picture of his body, and they just put Tom's head on the body. So when you're seeing that, you're seeing Derek Kunzer's body, but Tom Anderson's face.
And it worked out really well because you can't tell at all. It
No,
looks seamless.
yeah, I'll tell you, say what you will about the movie, but we did a great job with the cardboard cutout. Obviously, I think the movie's good too, but I'm really happy with the way the cardboard cutout turned out.
Yeah, I mean that. No wonder you kept them all. Why would you get rid of them?
Well, Derek was supposed to take the other one, but he hasn't done it yet. But like, I have a video store in my basement, so he just like sits there right next to all the VHS and DVDs and Blu-rays.
That feels appropriate.
Yeah, yeah.
The first question I wanted to ask is, why is 2025 the right time for the story of MySpace to get out there in this form?
Yeah, well, yeah. So yeah, we made it in 2025. It's now 2026. The thought there was like we were sort of doing the math and we're looking at like people who are graduating college and entering into the real world only knew a world in which social media existed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like I grew up, with like I'm like, oh, what's this thing called the internet? And then you're seeing all these things develop, and I think the people who are now this new generation don't know how that all started, and it's pretty interesting to see how through MySpace and Friendster and Asian Avenue and Black Planet and oh God, what am I blanking on the other one? The very very first one was called 6 Degrees. So it's
Yes.
seeing how all these things sort of formed to create like the social network and how social network turned to social media. So it's really, origin stories are super fascinating, and this is the origin of everything we are today, social media.
And I think what was so interesting, like what struck me really early about the story of MySpace and the movie, is that I was a little surprised to hear Chris and I'm blanking on the name.
Aber?
Aber, yes, Chris and Aber. I was really surprised to hear Chris and Aber kind of describe it. I'm paraphrasing here as a bit of a kitchen sink program or platform. Like it had social media, which had kind of existed in those other forms that you just mentioned. There was dating, there was music. They just kind of combined everything they could, and that
It was like
immediately
a combination of
reminded
like
me.
Hot or Not and like or like AIM, but like MP3 players, like MP3 sort of live journals and all that sort of stuff. Not Hot or Not, actually. That's not really Hot or Not, but like it was certainly AIM mixed with live journal mixed with like music websites.
Yeah, and all of those things together are today kind of to comic book terms. They're like the standard power set for any social media platform. Frankly, for almost any platform. So I was really surprised to hear that because it especially reminded me of like a few years ago. You probably remember when Elon Musk got Twitter and he said, "I'm going to make it X, the Everything app," and the Everything app implied that plus everything else. So I was really surprised to see to sort of just have it made explicit how much that already was back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, you look at like Twitter X, it's like it just feels like that's like a word sort of social media. It's very by the word and like some pictures and all that stuff, but like that's really it's like I remember when it was 140 characters. I have no idea what it is now. But Instagram really leads with like pictures, and then obviously they do videos with the reels and stuff like that. But TikTok is the video. So MySpace was this like collection of all that stuff. I do feel like some of the social media now is broken down by if you're like into this or you're into that, these are what it leads with, But MySpace, it was everything all at once. It was like you went on someone's profile and their profile song would be blasting. Their profile was customized. It wasn't like Instagram or Facebook now. It's like bedazzled and all these sort of weird wallpapers and crazy sort of pieces.
I actually anecdotally have met a few people that learned about programming from updating the HTML on their MySpace pages.
Yeah, like I had like a comedy rap group where it was like you would do this thing in the profile where you would leave like how to copy and paste the banner in someone's profile. I mean, everyone did that. It was like you just learned how to like be your own champion.
One thing that you start with, like before you even get into the founding of MySpace, I think there's probably there's a couple of minutes before that of just of everything that came before. And one thing that I've always noticed, and I think is like a common concern maybe around people my age and a little older, is when the internet started off, you had all these different forums and all these different IRC chats, and basically everything. You could live an entire lifetime on the internet and never go to the same pages as your neighbor, basically. And then with MySpace, that it kind of consolidated a lot of that. Your music site, your chat site, everything else was all on MySpace now. And now in 2026, we live in this world where there's like 6 websites that everybody goes to. And I guess my question there is, I wrote this question as how much of the DNA of the modern internet is just basically cribbed from MySpace. But like, do you think that? I mean, I guess it's barely a question. Do you think that MySpace kind of started that trend of consolidating everything?
I do, but like I think there was a couple people who tried, like, early social networks were like Asian Avenue and Black Planet. Like the way Ben Sung, who created both of those, said it to be is like almost like the city. We're like, oh, there's Little Italy, or there's like Koreatown or Chinatown, or like there's all these like segmented sort of spots in the city. Like you go to New York and there's like just different spots, or LA, there's different spots where, different groups of people kind of like hang out. And that's the way they sort of looked at it. Whereas like Friendster was the first one, was like, let's have everyone here,
Yeah.
Like they just didn't they didn't paint the walls right. There wasn't the right music. It wasn't the right layout. It was like, it wasn't, they had an idea, but they just didn't make it cool enough. And MySpace was the first one to sort of make it cool. And I believe it was like Josh, I believe it was Josh in our movie, was talking about like MySpace became like the big box store. Like you didn't have to go to the hardware store for this and the video store for that. It was all in one. And MySpace was, I think, the first one that really did all in one correctly.
And I guess there's like 2 things from there. One thing that I think is really important to that, but maybe feels tangential as I'm about to ask it. You have Chris and Aber talk a lot about the sort of the monetization model of MySpace, because that was, among many other things, one thing that really set them apart, is that they kind of figured out how to make this site profitable with just ads, which, they were saying before that, people were telling you it couldn't be done. And now that is basically the business model of the internet.
Yeah. I mean, it's super smart. Like, people were voluntarily telling you what they're into, I get so many sponsored ads for like limited edition Blu-rays now, because like that's what I'm into, and before then you would have to sort of find that stuff, for better or for worse. That's the way it is. And, like with MySpace, it's like, oh, I'm writing in, I like Calvin and Hobbes. I like Ghostbusters, nowadays those ads are now targeted to like, oh, did you want this Ghostbusters t-shirt? It's like, yeah, probably I do, but, I think they were the beginning of all that sort of stuff. But the only issue with MySpace, it was, the internet wasn't, I mean, I hate to be the guy that says you got to remember, but you got to remember, like, at that time with MySpace, people actively chose to go on the internet. What I mean by that is, like, you had a desktop computer and you either had dial-up internet or or cable, and you chose to go online. It wasn't like a responsibility that was in your pocket. MySpace didn't really transition to the mobile app or the mobile sort of server, or not server, but like, the website or the web surfing on the phone, because it was so much. It was so junky. There was so many things going on at once. It was the sleek Facebook, the sleek Twitter, the sleek Instagram that were way better on the phone. And as we started living more on the phone, I think MySpace started going away. I mean, it was like, we don't have the line in the movie, but someone said it in one of our interviews. It was like death by a million bullets. There's so many things that were happening at the time that sort of caused MySpace to go down. But that to me was like one of the big ones, because it's like, I never went on MySpace on my phone. I mean, I actually,
was it even possible?
I think later they tried to, so I don't quote me necessarily on that, but like, it was something that they definitely have said they were too late to that idea, Like, I remember, dude, like, Instagram, I had a BlackBerry and I couldn't have Instagram because it was only for like Apple phones in the beginning, you know?
I think originally Instagram didn't. Maybe don't quote me on this because I was a late adopter to it, but I think originally Instagram didn't or barely had a web browser at all. Even today, that's like
Oh
not
yeah.
really where their interests lie. I would say.
Yeah, like I've actually gone on like, on my computer like www.instagram.com, I'm like this is weird,
Hmm.
But that's where I don't put Facebook on my phone by design, because
Right.
that messenger thing would be drive me crazy.
It's nasty.
Yeah, but Facebook, I'm very addicted to the checking my face, checking my Instagram. Sorry. Yeah.
Hmm. Speaking of, I guess, other social media sites, one that you mentioned early on and kind of hinted a bigger story, and I know what the bigger story is Napster. Napster early on, probably one of the first big peer-to-peer music sharing websites, and you talk a little bit about it, especially when you're getting into talking about how MySpace was, or how important music was to MySpace. But I was wondering, is there more on Napster that was like originally in the film that didn't make it? Because I noticed in the Napster montage, someone searches up a Metallica song, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
there's this whole story, but
Well,
it's
I mean,
not in
you only have like limited archive of certain things,
there.
and the big story for Napster is always Metallica, But Alex Winter actually did the Napster documentary many many years ago,
Oh,
downloaded. So Alex Winter did the documentary Downloaded, which is all about the comings up of Napster. To
mm-hmm.
us, it was important to mention Napster because it was that beginning of sharing music and like peer to peer stuff. You know, it's funny. Like I was on Napster. Like I remember like downloading like the Frogs album. That's how I found out about the Frogs. My friend Mike Plante like was like I accidentally downloaded this band, the Frogs.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that you could like chat with people on there. Like that wasn't like a thing. But like when like Sage Francis and Dashboard Confessional and all these other musicians were talking about that, I was like, oh, I had no idea. But apparently that was a thing.
And that was also, I mean, the being able to chat was clearly like a really big important thing for the musicians in the movie too,
Yeah, I mean,
because
like
as you're
AIM. Like I
talking.
remember like having like Dane Cook's AIM because it was like listed on his MySpace, and
Mm-hmm.
like one time he replied back to me, and I thought it was the coolest thing. One time, me and my friends thought we had Hanson's AIM, but and who knows?
Maybe.
It was like Dream 1415 or something like that. It was like the weirdest thing. So who knows if it was him or not, them or not.
You can say it now because I'm sure they aren't
Well,
using
there's
it
no such thing as
anymore.
AIM anymore. Its AIM's gone.
Yeah. Actually, that leads me right into the next question that I had here. I always grew up hearing, the internet is forever.
Yeah.
But clearly, there's lots of things that are pretty much gone now. Actually, right before this interview, I went to myspace.com and it's not there.
What? Really?
If you go to myspace.com, it's not currently, it currently gives you a connection timeout.
Oh, that's weird. It was working like not too long. Oh wow, that's weird. Well, news to me. I mean, because like we got to interview the current owners of MySpace.
Hmm.
I bet they're trying to like update or something like that. But like, they got me to log into my old account, and like we didn't get too into it because it's like it's so tricky and there's like it's so later. Like our stuff is really just like the Chris, the Tom Aber, like kind of like all the people who found it. Like once they were out, our story sort of stops, and then like we do a little bit of the Justin Timberlake stuff. But there was like a
Hmm.
whole data loss because it's like they had to like move from one server to the next, and like the old servers there was like the stuff going on, and they just couldn't bring a lot of the stuff over. So that's why a lot of the stuff in MySpace is gone. But I mean, as of like 2 weeks ago, the MySpace website was working. It had that new look to it.
I'm sure it's temporary. Like probably by the time people hear this, it'll be back up.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean,
I'm
yeah, it's a ghost town, man. Like I got to log into my old account, and you still see some of the accounts of the people you would follow or you're friends with. Um, and some of them have pictures, some of them don't. Like I have one photo in mine, but like I had tons.
Mhm.
And then there's no messages anymore. There was like none of the comments. It's just like so much is disappeared from that because of that data loss. But yeah, I mean it's probably all a good thing.
Can you elaborate on that?
Early 2000s is a crazy time. Did you ever see Spring Breakers, man? Like that was.
Oh,
I think people lived a
fair.
little loud in the early 2000s, and some people probably are thankful that those pictures don't exist anymore.
Yeah, probably. I was gonna say it. Maybe it was always I always heard the internet is forever. That was never told to me, and like this is a good thing.
Well, because like I mean, you think of it like I mean, just that. Like, how old are you?
32.
Okay, cool. I'm 43. Like, I lived through those times, and it was like the first time people had digital cameras, and like you're posting these pictures, and there was like you didn't quite know what you were posting it on, so like a lot of people were in like the Suicide Girls and all that sort of stuff. It was just like it was a raw, sort of weird ruckus time, and I'm sure many people who are like parents now or like you know like it was, or like trying to get a job so like a higher ranking job are probably happy they don't have like any of the photos of them like puking at the bar or like or dancing on top of the bar like with their little
Right.
cowboy hat on and stuff like that. Like good thing some of those don't exist.
Actually, that reminds me. How did you decide on who to interview for this film? And specifically, I was thinking about that question because you have Tila Tequila, you have Jeffree Star, you have Zooey Suicide.
Oh, nice.
Um, of all, I
You
mean,
know
at
who that
least
is?
I I don't, but
Okay.
I was familiar with the website Suicide Girls, and I knew that like all of the people who worked for them, like had suicide as the last name of their like stage
Mostly,
name,
yeah, yeah, not
mostly.
all of them, but
So
like, yeah. So I mean, like, that's the tricky thing, man. Like, it's a really tough experience. It's a really tough thing to make a MySpace documentary because it's not for all intents and purposes not real.
right.
It's choose your own adventure.
Mm,
Some people walk into MySpace thinking like it's all about dashboard, it's all about emo, it's all about this. Others like, oh no, I'm all about hip hop and Def Jux and Cage Kennels and Aesop Rock. Some people are like, I'm an Avenged Sevenfold person. I'm a Taylor Swift person. Yeah, there's so many different entry points to MySpace. So who do you interview? Like,
mm,
and we obviously you got to do Dane Cook.
yeah.
You got to do Teal Tequila and Jeffree Star because these people made something of themselves through MySpace. Then
Mm,
it's like, okay, well, Dashboard was pretty big, and I'm a huge Sage Francis fan, so yeah, I'm gonna put Sage Francis in the movie. I text here's a name drop. I'm texting Kevin Smith because I'm a huge fan of his, and we've known each other for quite some time but never worked together. It's like, do you have any MySpace stories? He's like, I actually do have a MySpace stories. Come on over. So it's like a lot of that sort of stuff. But then you're also like, you know, Kobe Calais. It's like she was like named a queen of MySpace at one point. So you get her. And but like there's also it's like oh, wouldn't that be great to get Paramore in there? Oh, well, Paramore doesn't want to be in it because they're doing this, or certain people have scheduling issues. So it's like it's tough, man. You just grab you lead with the things you want. You grab the things that are important, and then you work everything else out. You know,
mm.
Mickey Avalon. Mickey Avalon's huge,
Oh yeah.
in the MySpace story. So.
Were there any interviews that you? I mean, I'm sure there were interviews you couldn't get, but were
Sure.
there any interviews that you like did get but just didn't make it into the movie?
Yeah, we had 303 in the interviewed. So we were like, you everything's a budget, right? So
Yeah.
like we found a way to do some because our interviews look great, but like
Mm,
we're like, oh, is there a way to do like sort of like other lower like crew interviews? So we started like thinking like, can we do a couple on Zoom?
mm-hmm.
uh, and sort of like make them in the profile. Like we were trying to think of creative ways to do that stuff. Like so we had like 303 and like uh, Imogen Heap. We
Oh
interviewed
yeah.
Imogen Heap and stuff like that, and Travis from Piebald and stuff like that. Like we were trying to build these sort of sequences that didn't work. I'll tell you who we were going to interview is Sean Kingston. I talked to his mom slash manager, Miss Turner, and she set it up and we were doing some like FaceTime on the phone, and it just he was on his way to a show, so we couldn't like figure out the timing, and then 2 days later he was in jail, so didn't work out, you know. But Little John was someone that I went after for quite some time, and like, you know, worked way around his schedule because he was just so busy at the time, and luckily it just worked out. Where like it was like one of the last interviews we did, and you know, I think Little John's got some of the best jokes in the movie, you know.
And I think that Little John is just, I think he's a really good interview for that for lots of reasons. He's very charismatic, great interview just in general, but also he sort of bridges the gap between, you know, what the music industry was before and what the music industry was after.
Yeah,
there is a shift.
Bravo had that sort of before and after sort of thing, you know. Even Simple Plan, like Simple Plan was like, you know, a lot of these like guys like that and All American Rejects had that one album before and then the other album out. And so like they got their dipped their toes in both little worlds, you know.
Kevin Smith kind of too, because he talks about what the internet was when he started.
Kevin Smith is like, I will say to the day is done, like how revolutionary Kevin Smith is. Like he was like always so before his time, you know, like talking to people on message boards before that was cool. You know, like he was told like, why are you talking to these people? You know, like but like he would do it and he built an audience that way. You know, he did podcasts before people did podcasts. You know, even the movies he did, you know, like later, like Todd Phillips and Judd Apatow got a little bit more success from doing the similar movies. I mean, obviously Kevin Smith has always had success, but didn't crack those sort of like numbers that they did, you know. But you know, Kevin's always ahead of his time.
While we're talking about some of the interviews in the movie, there was one quote that really, like, I stopped the movie and just wrote it down and made sure I had this exactly here as a quote. It's not that impressive. It was from one of the All American Rejects members that you interviewed, Mike Kennedy, and he says, "I kind of hate what it created," when you were asking him about the impact of MySpace. And I guess I was wondering, you know, there's a bigger question there of like, how would you summarize that effect of what MySpace created? But just in general, you know, can you comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, because like MySpace knocked down the door, you know, but like once like, and I can never say this word right, but the algorithms, you know, like once that like sort of like became a thing, like people like Bit Not Cow who worked for MySpace, she was there like curating all these things for MySpace. It was like human made, like human with like human love, you know. But once the machines start telling you like what's this, and like, I mean, I was looking at my Instagram the other day. It's like, I don't know half these people. Like, I want to see the people I follow, you know. But you know, also it's like, it's not for me anymore. You know, this stuff is always for the youth. You know, like, and you know, it's like Little John said, it's like we're the first generation to be like, well, back in my day, in my social media, you know, and that's the case. You know, it's like people talk about music or movies nowadays and like all that sort of stuff. It's like you move out of that target demo of like the youth, and you know, I don't necessarily like the way certain things on social media are now, but like I'm sure people of the youth might. But also, I'm not here for like that. Like our film doesn't go like lean into like the opinions of is social media good or bad or now, but it's like for better or worse, MySpace was the beginning of it, you know, and MySpace had kind of pure intentions, you know.
So I wrote down what is almost certainly the biggest question for last, and you've already sort of gone into it, which is good because it's a very big question. Do you think the overall impact of MySpace was positive?
And here's the thing, man. I love MySpace, you know, and like, is it rose-colored glasses? I don't know, you know, but like you know, we see this in the movie, but it's like we were that first generation to have our scene online, you know, like I pined for like, oh man, what would it have been like in the 80s at CBGB's, or like, you know, LA and like early Comedy Store, or the Viper Room, you know, or New York Studio 54, or like some of like Second City in Chicago back when like Bill Murray, like what would it have been like to be a part of that scene, you know? And this was the first time the scene, like what was hip and what was happening, wasn't like something you need to stand in line for. There was no red rope, no velvet rope. There was no one letting you in or not letting you in. All you needed was a desktop computer, a password, and some decent internet. And you were a part of the scene. Like people like Jeffree Star can become something. Someone like Teal Akil to become something. Dane Cook. all these people were had like sort of equal playing ground to become like a superstar, like you would have been in Studio 54. So to have that scene be the first time online was super interesting because I just remember like, going to dollar nights at the bowling alley and like talking to people or going to a show or like a basement show or something like that and like post the photos afterwards. Like so many of my friends were in hardcore bands. We had a comedy rap group. Like, and you just like did this stuff and you could see the reaction, whether it was good or bad from there, and that was fun. And I enjoyed that time. I don't get that sort of like joy out of social media now, but I don't know. I really like MySpace and that was fun. I met my wife on MySpace, so it was a lot of fun times. So you look back, and yeah, I guess you forget some of the bad, but yeah, MySpace was fun.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Tommy Avallone.
No problem.
Real quick, is there distribution for MySpace already? Do you know when people can see this?
Yeah, we're working on that now. Like Van Toffler, who runs Gunpowder and Sky, he's tasked to do that. This was his project from the beginning because he used to run MTV, and Viacom almost bought MySpace, so he just knew Krista Wolf and Aber and all that sort of stuff. I mean, funny enough, not funny enough, but like just give credit where credit's due. Van also produced Dead Man on Campus, Election, Crossroads, Jackass. Like, so he's just like done so many great things. But so like, yeah, they'll work on selling it. I'm sure it will. But yeah. So right now there's no answer.
When it does come out, everyone listening, go see it. It is a great documentary. I'm really glad I got to see it at Hot Docs, and I hope I get to see it again when it comes out. I hope it comes to my neck of the woods.
That'd be great. Yeah, I mean, and then like I'm like what Tommy Avallone, Avallone 3 on Instagram and all that sort of stuff. So I'll certainly be talking about it if it comes out, or when it comes out.
Yeah, go follow Tommy on Instagram.
Thank you. All right, man. Well, I'm gonna go eat a chicken cheesesteak.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, Jeff, that was a fantastic interview. Thank you so much again for doing that. What a character Tommy is. I love that he still has that cardboard cutout right in his office, and you ask him where the other ones are. He's like, it's here. Actually, you know what? I have all of them. They're all in my house somewhere.
Yeah, I'm curious to see his basement. What's going on there? He described a very interesting basement because he has like a whole video shop in there. I was like,
yeah, that caught me off guard too. I'm like,
in a house?
Yeah. What do you mean video shop? Please tell me more about it, and can I come visit?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, he has a lot of stuff to talk about, and there's clearly so much more.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that puts on a great bow to your interview there. We learned so many new things about both MySpace and the documentary through this interview. So honestly, if people are interested about this movie, this is a fantastic interview to check out because I feel like Tommy gives just a wealth of information and fascinating stories here.
Mm-hmm. And as he mentioned right at the end, I believe distribution is pretty close to being figured out. So this movie will come out. Not that there was any danger of it not coming out, but it will be out sometime soon. We don't have a date for you yet, but keep an eye out. Keep an eye out for it. Check out Tommy's Instagram. He will be posting about it when it finally comes out. Hopefully everyone was able to catch. I think I put the Instagram in there. So yeah, check that out.
No, that'll definitely be in the show notes. I feel this is going to be a real crowd pleaser of a documentary, especially those of a certain vintage. And by that, I mean people my age that are millennials that had a MySpace are going to absolutely love this movie. So like I said, in the show notes, there's going to be a link to Tommy's pages so you can, stay up to date on the release information of this movie. I wrote about this movie, so I'm going to have a review that links to that. And then we also talked about this on our last episode of ContraZoom Pod so that you can listen there. Jeff, thank you so much again for doing this interview. What a great job. I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. Where can people find more of your work?
Well, probably the best place at the moment to go if you like this interview is to that Hot Docs episode you just mentioned. We talk about a lot more documentaries, and there's one or two where I talk about them for too long because I tried really, really hard to watch all the documentaries, even the ones that I wasn't bringing there. I didn't make it, but sometimes that led me to ramble about the ones I did get to see. Beyond that, I also have another podcast called Classic Movies Live, which is currently only on Spotify, but up on there as of the time of this recording. The most recent episode that went up was actually our Hot Docs episode, where we talk about a couple of different movies from the ones that we talked about on Contra Zoom. I talked about them I had Pedro Lima, who's also on the Contra Zoom pod episode. I had him on to talk about 4 movies that we didn't talk about on your episode. So if people are interested in hearing more about great documentaries from Hot Docs, lots of resources to do that right now.
And Jeff wrote a ton of great reviews that you can also find on the website. I'm going to link to all that in the show notes, as I always do. This has been a That Shelf podcast. Visit thatshelf.com for more great film discourse. You can follow the show on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at ContraZoomPod. Have you seen MySpace? What are your thoughts on? Were you on that social media website back in the day? I would love to know what was in your top 8. What song was on your profile? Please tell me all of that. Leave a comment on Spotify or send us an email. Thank you to Eric and Kevin Smale for the theme music and to Stephanie Pryor for the logo design. If you like to listen to podcasts on YouTube, we do post all episodes there as well. And if you really like the show, consider tipping us on coffee. Thanks for checking us out.